You see, God is a God of order. And so if we have chaos, that's not really what God wants. And so when God put things into creation, when He brought everything into being, what He said is this: we need certain orders of the way things will work to reflect who I am. Because some people say, okay, why do we have government? Well, God put it into place. Why do we have marriage? Because God put it into place. Why do we have workplace? God created it, Genesis chapter 2. And so the reality is God has put these things in place. And so what He says is, I need these things to reflect who I am. So a husband who is not Spirit-filled, that is not doing what God wants, let me tell you what he'll be. He will be abusive, or he will be passive. And that's my next point right here, is that authority given to a man is not the same as tyranny. And so a wife then comes to a situation, she says, well, at what point do I not do what my husband is asking me to do? Right? God, Brian, this is hard stuff to swallow here. And some of you right now, as we've been talking about this, you're kind of backing up emotionally. And you're going, I don't know, because you've been in a situation yourself where there's maybe been abuse, or you know of someone, it might even be in your own family, your own parents, or you know someone who's a friend who is right now going through a struggling, abusive situation in marriage. And I say, don't rush there yet. Don't go there. We're talking about God's pattern of the way it should be and must be in our marriages. And so we see that a wife is called to respectfully defer. What are the boundaries? What are the limits of that? You see, a man who is not walking with God and not doing what God wants, he will be either one, passive, like I said, which means he's not sacrificing for his wife. He's not willing to actively honor her and show her how much he cares for her. He's not actively trying to figure out how to develop his wife. Or on the opposite extreme, he will do what makes so many women fearful of doing their God-given role, and that is that he will be abusive. He will be tyrannical. And this is not a synonym for tyranny. If any of us as husbands have taken wrongful advantage of our wives, it is sin. It's wrong. If we have ever asked our wives to do something that they would later regret because it was not consistent with what God wants, that's not right. If we would ever dominate or try to demand things, that is not sacrificial loving. And so the question becomes, where are those boundaries? Where are those barriers in terms of this? And so I want to share with you, anyone who is asked to respectfully defer is never asked to do that with limitless authority. Never asked to do that without condition. Never asked to do that if it goes beyond what God asks. You see, here's the boundary. Any authority that's been given to a man in a household is delegated authority from God. And that man is to reflect who God is to his wife and to his family. At the point where a man asks a wife to do something that is not consistent and reflective with God and what God asks, so if a man is asking something that God prohibits, or if he is neglecting something that God says is important, that is the point at which he forfeits his authority in his wife and in the marriage.